The Sketch-O-Matic Show.
I'm on a roll, folks. I'm on a roll. I'm recording. I took some time off, as stated in the previous episode. Sketchy. With DJ Regulate. Back again. Smack dab in the middle of summer. It's hotter than fish grease outside, but it's air conditioned in the studio presently. My special guest today is not in media that I'm aware of, like radio or, podcasting and stuff like that. She's an actor, model,
and
now voiceover for me. Let's get into it. Let's have a conversation with my little friend Eloise Lola Gordon.
Hello.
What's up, Eloise? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a minute since I saw you last.
Yeah, I was trying to think of how long ago that was. It's got to be like maybe 3-4 months.
At least.
Maybe even more than that.
And I just met you, and you came up and you did some voiceover for me.
Yes.
And it was very, very good.
It was so fun. I had such a good time.
Yeah, considering you don't do voiceover that much. You hadn't done it before.
Not really. I mean, I've had to do voiceover stuff for, different projects, films, things that I've been in where they'll need moments of VO, but never like solely that. But I want to get more into it. I have a lot of fun yapping.
Get into it.
Yeah, I've got to get into it.
That was the first, I remember when you first came up 3 or 4 months ago, and we recorded some listener audio for Chase Cuts, which is the website, the radio imaging website I work for. And I just met you as a budtender over at MMD.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, Eloise, as soon as I heard you talk, I was like, oh, man. You got to understand, to me, voiceover is so, like, it's equivalent to, like, when men or women see someone that they're attracted to.
Yeah.
In certain aspects, like whatever, maybe they like their ears or they like their eyes or they like their haircut. But when I hear a voiceover, especially from a woman, dudes too, but it's more accents with dudes. Like if I hear a cool Australian accent coming out of a dude, I'm all, hey, let me record. But when a female talks and has that soft-spoken, raspy tone, it's like kryptonite to me. And you not only helped me with the voiceover, but you also hooked me up with a very proper selection of the ganja that day.
Of course.
So since then, I've made some progress with your voiceover stuff that you gave me, but we're not here to just talk about the voiceover. I'm curious about Eloise, the person, because I really don't know that much about you. We just kind of befriended each other as colleagues, acquaintances, and whatnot. But like, what is it that you do other than the modeling and the acting that I've seen you post about, which is really quite significant? I mean, the way you can change your look up so drastically. We were just talking off pod. You just recently posted a picture of yourself with a new hair dye color. When I first met you, it was red. You had bangs. That was great. It fits your personality. It suits you well. And then I see you change your hair to a darker, like brownish red kind of color almost.
Yeah, like kind of like Dr.
Auburn.
Pepper. Yeah, exactly. Right? That's actually, they call it a cherry Coke color.
Yes. Yeah. Very Dr. Pepper. And cherry Coke. But like when I saw the post, I told you off pod, I was like, oh, I didn't know Eloise had a sister. And I'm not even kidding. I really thought it was not you.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it again and I go, oh. This is her. I was like, wow, you can really be like an international spy.
Yeah, I had a lot of reactions like that. Even my mom, who's always, she never wants me to dye my hair. I'm a dirty blonde. She's a blonde. So she wants her daughters to be blonde with her. So ever since I started dyeing my hair, she's always been like, I mean, it looks good. I support you. And today I was talking to her this morning and she finally kind of admitted, she was like, you know what? This looks really good on you, and I've realized that you look good with every hair color you've tried, and that's a very good thing. And I feel very grateful for that. Because really not everyone can pull off light and dark, and warm bangs. And cool. Yeah.
I mean, Eloise, you truly are gifted in that top tier gene.
Thank you. I mean, credits to mom.
Yeah, credits to mom. What's mom's name?
Mom's Brooke.
Brooke Gordon.
Yes.
And Brooke. Gordon. Does she recognize you right away? Did she mistakenly go, oh, hi, I'm Brooke?
Yeah. I'm sure when she's not paying attention. I mean, she calls me my sister's name. She calls me the dog's name. So I would not be surprised if she thought I was a stranger on the street.
I mean, it is quite fascinating. Now, as I was saying at the top, I don't really know that much about you, but like, I see that you're out there living life. You have a significant other in your life, right? No, or they're just friends.
Yeah, just friends.
Really? Oh, yeah. I thought I saw you with like your boo.
No. I don't have a boo.
Interesting.
I've not had a boo in a very, very long time.
Same. I'm boo-less.
Yeah, boo-less, but happily boo-less.
I'm content.
Yeah.
Previous episode, I talked about how I put myself out there recently, and it totally backfired.
Yeah, it can definitely do that, especially when you're like, I'm open to things, and then sometimes you don't really realize what you're opening yourself to.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about rejected? Well, okay. Before we jump ahead, I don't want to jump all over the place. Let me stick to the agenda, because I had taken so much time off previously, and with DJ Regulate, I was kind of jumping all over the place because I felt like I had so much to get off my chest. I'm trying to focus here and let this be about, keep it in structure context.
Totally.
So as far as the work goes, actor, model, and the bud tending thing, which you said you didn't really do too much of. That was more of like a temporary situation. Yeah, it's not like you're there all day, every day.
Yeah, I was definitely working there part-time as a temporary job. I quit in April, right before 420.
Right after I met you.
Yeah, basically. I was only there for a couple more weeks after I met you.
They didn't want you on the High Hope show?
They technically did. They wanted me to do background because I had joined the dispensary after the casting and everything had already happened. But so I actually worked there twice. I worked at the Hollywood location when they were filming, and then I started working at the North Hollywood location probably like 6 months later. And part of the reason I quit was because of them filming, because it was camera crews and it's Hulu, and so they're coming in, taking over the dispensary, and they wanted us to sign contracts essentially to be background actors and like have little moments theoretically, but we weren't going to be getting paid extra. And I do background work. I've done a lot of background work, and I know what a standard union background
central casting style.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know
at least $60 to $80, right, for the day.
Oh,
extra.
It's 138 or 136 is the minimum
now.
Yeah,
wow.
136 is the minimum for a day rate.
I got to get back into some background acting.
Exactly. And I mean, you think about those overtimes, the meal penalties. It's like pretty much any time I do background, I'll make like somewhere between like 180, 200.
Union, SAG-AFTRA?
I'm SAG eligible, but I'm not part of the union. So
I thought you were going to say I'm SAG Eloise.
I am SAG Eloise.
Okay, so
that's my name soon. But
I guess the main question here at the bottom is, what do you do for a living? Because like I said, I see you on the post and you're out there, you're living the American dream. Okay. And it seems like you're having a great time.
Definitely.
Pool parties, this, that. It's almost like you're right next to being an influencer, but you're not quite an influencer.
I'm just next to a lot of influencers.
You're like adjacent, influencer adjacent.
Yeah, I'm like all my friends are, so I just like reap the benefits of them without having to do any of the work. Exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
So, but what is it? What do you do? What do you do for work? Is it just the acting and modeling that you get paid for?
Right now, I mean, up until April, I would always have some kind of side job. So in LA, I've been bud tending and then doing background work in between jobs. And then in New York, for pretty much the entire 5 years I was there, I would work in different vintage stores. So that's really, my side hustle, I would say, in a way. I worked at this store, Spark Pretty, in New York for 2 years. That was, shout out Spark Pretty, because my absolute favorite job, my favorite store I've ever worked. And when I got to LA, I realized that I didn't have a lot of money from my retail jobs because I spent all my money buying clothes from the stores that I worked at. So I came here and I was like, all right, I'm not going to work in retail. Let me do something else so that I'm not like spending my paychecks where I work. And that's kind of what brought me to bud tending. But I, within the last few months, have been able to not have a survival job, so to speak.
So you don't have like a 9 to 5?
Not right now, because I'm working in the vertical soap opera land.
What's that? Please elaborate. This sounds very thrilling.
It's very interesting. It's something that's really popped up within the last year and a half. And imagine Netflix and TikTok had a baby.
Whoa.
And then it's days of our lives.
Net Talk.
Yeah, Net Talk. But there are these streaming apps that you get, and they are creating essentially feature-length films that they break into like mini episodes.
What's it called again? What's the genre you just mentioned?
I call them vertical soap operas. The terminology, it's still so new that the terminology is changing all the time. So it's vertical soap operas. That's one way. Vertical dramas. People are calling them mobisodes.
All right. So I just Googled vertical soap opera.
Yeah. It's becoming a huge thing. They're always about a billionaire, a marriage that's under contract. Like, they're so dramatic and absolutely ridiculous, but they're so much fun. And I mean, they pay really well, and they happen. I mean, essentially you film a feature film in 6 to 9 days, and it comes out a month later.
It says here, vertical TV series with their unique 9:16 aspect ratio are crafted to fit the natural orientation of smartphones. This format emphasizes close-ups and intimate storytelling, allowing actors to connect with viewers on a more personal level. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Interesting.
Because it's right in your phone. It's meant to be watched while you're on the train or like waiting in a waiting room for something, because they're full storylines, beginning, middle, end storylines, but broken up into minute-long, 2-minute-long episodes. So it's very easy to watch and then stop watching and keep watching, and you're not really missing too much or feeling like you're going...
Or you're committing too much. You have to commit to a series. When you start a new series, it's like a commitment.
I mean, it's a commitment in the sense that there's sometimes 90 episodes.
Yeah.
So you're watching for an hour and a half, an hour 45 minutes all the way through.
Yeah.
But you can split it up however you want it.
It's more user friendly.
Totally.
Now, it's interesting. The vertical soap opera. It's reminiscent to me of that short-lived app Quibi.
Yes.
Remember Quibi?
Yes. And that's what that was the inspiration for all of these. But Quibi kind of failed in a lot of ways. It went under pretty quickly.
And it happened right around the beginning of the because I was working here at iHeart. And I remember doing commercials for Quibi, and I checked out Quibi. It was pretty fucking dope. Like, they had some solid. There was this one show, I don't remember the name of it, but each episode was like 10 minutes long. There was only like 3 or 4 episodes, and it was like a psychological thriller. And you could change if you held the phone vertically, right? Vertical soap opera. It had one aspect ratio, one angle of the actors. But then you changed it to its what's a horizontal.
Oh, okay.
And it gave you another angle of what's happening.
Interesting.
It was way out there. It was definitely way ahead of its time.
Definitely.
And I think that's why it failed. I don't think people were ready for it. Yeah. However, just like MySpace was the pebble stepping stone to Facebook and everything else, right? I feel like Quibi, just like this, has started this vertical soap opera
1,000%.
trend,
yeah.
right?
I mean, we talk about Quibi on sets a lot because people say the exact same thing when I'm talking to like the producers and stuff and being like, oh, how'd you get into this or whatever? A lot of them say like we all saw the potential that Quibi had, but the world wasn't, even though we were very much in the smartphone vertical land, TikTok hadn't blown up.
Right.
And now that we're so used to watching things on TikTok, like watching like more extended content in a vertical format, because before, people would watch TV shows on their phone, but you move it horizontally. Right. So now that people are actually used to watching video content vertically, and it's not so jarring to watch, now it's becoming this huge industry.
So in a way, Quibi and then the rise of TikTok combine is this new vertical. And of course, Quibi, I think Quibi can come back now if they try.
I think if they tried,
the right time.
But now they have so much competition, so they'd have to really.
What other apps are out there like that?
There's so many. There's so many different streaming services. I've worked for Best Short. I've worked for Galatea TV, and then the one that I'm starting tomorrow, I actually don't know what company it's with, but
you have a shoot tomorrow?
Yeah, I started shooting one of these tomorrow. I have 2 back-to-back actually, so I had a fitting yesterday.
Can you talk about it, or did you sign like an NDR? I know NDR.
I know I've signed contracts. I don't think specifically. I probably can't talk too much about the project itself. Right. But the companies, the formats of all of these are pretty similar across all the different companies. And at this point, I have a ton of friends, pretty much all the actors that I know right now working in LA that aren't, bigger name people attached to like more consistent shows or movies. This is where we're all working right now, especially because things have been so slow and they're non-union. Yeah. So anyone that's non-union or FICOR or SAG eligible, that's where we're all making our money, because you can do exactly what I'm doing right now, where you book 2 projects back to back and then that's a couple $1,000s and you're good for the month. Talk about the booking and then having, you have to show up on set somewhere. Where are they filming these projects? If you can disclose that. All over the place, mainly they rent out crazy mansions. Because all of the storylines kind of across the board are about very wealthy people. There's always this air of like wealth and royalty just across the line. So we're always filming in crazy mansions in Beverly Hills, or tomorrow I'm filming in a house in Woodland Hills. Wow. I shot at a mansion in Downey, California, which I had never even heard of before. You never heard of Downey? No, I mean, really? I'm pretty new to LA. And so in terms of like the outside areas, like it's huge. There's so many. There's Whittier, exactly. Downey, there's so many different neighborhoods. San Gabriel Valley. Yeah. We shot at a hotel because there was a whole gala scene at one point. We shot at a hotel in the San Gabriel Valley. Yeah, it's far. It's pretty far. Alhambra. Yeah. Yes. I mean, a lot of times these shoots are far, but then sometimes you'll have a sound stage. Like we had to shoot in an airplane. So there was like a fake airplane hangar in North Hollywood that has all these airplane parts. And, for people that are filming in airplanes, you can't actually go to an airport and film in an airplane. Right. So they have all these fake airplanes that you can move around, like sets. Yeah. And it was so cool. That was so much fun. That's dope. Yeah. I mean, the production value on these things are really crazy. I mean, the budgets, the sets that they get, it's full hair, makeup, like all the bells and whistles. Saving money, right? Are they saving money, or is it? How do I phrase this? It's like it's not as expensive as actually going through an actual, like A24 or something like that. Probably. I mean, I guess I don't know enough about the money aspect of them on like the other end that way, but I will say all of these apps are not free, and people are paying a lot of money. Right. Well, not necessarily, depending on each app. So some apps you have like subscription options, but like Best Short, you can get coins. So you could have a subscription. Sometimes the subscriptions are like $150 for a year. Really? Yeah. You can't pay like monthly? You can, but I think it's like $20 a month. Right. It's like Netflix. Exactly. It's people are paying that much for these, and they'll have multiple apps, or you can get coins. Right. So I mean, they give me coins because obviously like I'm in the project, they're not going to make me pay for it, but they gave me the equivalent of like $50 of coins, and to watch the full project that I first had on there, it was like $20. Interesting. Let me Google Best Short real quick. I think I've heard of Best Short. I mean, there's so many. There's Best Short, there's Drama Box, Reel Plus, Reel Short, and there's more and more apps coming up every day because people are making so much money. And that's all because of like, you think the Quibi thing started it all? I think so. Right. I mean, it's mainly an international audience. Mm-hmm. They're just really starting to try and push it in America. Mm-hmm. But I think, it was with the inspiration of where this all came from, because it is so new. It's very unprecedented for sure. Yeah. I mean, Quibi, it came and went and it was short-lived, but it, like I said, it had this is here and it's staying. Yeah, it has it was a trendsetter. It started something. Absolutely. It may have failed, but now we're here talking about it, and it's huge. It seems like it's blowing up. Oh, and it is blowing up. You got 2 gigs booked this week alone. Yeah. You're filming wherever you're filming. Yeah, all over the place, all over LA. Are you a main character? So I'm the villain in both of these next ones. The one that I start tomorrow, I'm definitely a supporting character. And then the one I shoot next week, I'm a lead. But the lead villain. Oh, wow. Yeah. Eloise the villain. Yes. I like that. I love playing the villain, especially on these things, because, the scripts are really crazy. And what they're asking you to do is so unnatural, and you're speaking because all the information has to come out super fast. It's a very tell, don't show, whereas opposed to pretty much all other media is show, don't tell. What does that mean? Can you elaborate on that? What that's saying is? It means that instead of insinuating someone has a plan or a plot, you're going to hear their thoughts, or you're going to see them very obviously do the manipulative thing.
Oh, like narrating to themselves, like Dexter.
Yeah, there's a lot of is a lot of voiceover actually that goes into them. So I've been doing pretty much every one that I've done.
Are you going to be a British English speaking a villain? Because I think would work for you.
I hope so.
Right?
I hope one day. I mean, I did just audition for one that was about princesses. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a princess, and they asked us to do British accents, but I that was last week, so I've not heard anything back yet, but I do hope I get that because that would be so fun.
Okay, so how does one get into the vertical soap opera industry? Because obviously you came from background acting, modeling, which is mainstream.
Yeah.
I've done background acting through Central Casting, very easy to get into. You get work right away. You know, it is kind of grueling hours and whatnot. But if you're working at Warner Brothers and you're already in Burbank, then you're good.
Yeah, exactly. You're fine.
Yeah, you're right here. But if you have to go to, I've had to like drive to Ontario. Yeah. And it was brutal just sitting around all day.
No, and I had to stop doing background work for that reason, unless I really am like, I need it, or it seems like a particularly fun show that I'd love to just see how the set is run. Like I was doing background on Sex Lives of College Girls a couple months ago. Yeah. That was so much fun, and I would absolutely work for that show again, mainly because it's all young, like-minded people. But I think the issue I have with background work, especially when you're doing like crowd stuff or pedestrian stuff, you don't know who's showing up, and it brings in all kinds, and they cast all kinds intentionally. But I've definitely had some strange interactions with people, or just weird energy.
Really? Let's talk about that real quick. Can we go a little deeper in that? What was like the weird experience that you shared when you were in one of these crowd scenes, Eloise? I mean,
off the top of my head, I don't have like a specific, or actually, no.
All right.
I do. There was one, I was doing background for SWAT, and it was like a college campus. I think it was a cheerleader, and it was like the basketball players are getting onto the bus, and then someone comes with a gun, and we all have to like scatter, and he like holds the bus hostage, and we're in holding, and I was talking like whatever, we're all sitting in a circle waiting because it's, you know, hours are going by when they're not even using us.
Right.
And we start in this group conversation, which really ends up being between me and this guy talking about, you know, his opinions on relationships and women. And it turned into a multiple hour-long conversation trying to like undo the misogyny of this man. And even like the other men in the circle were like, bro, like the way, like he was very like, my wife will not work. My wife is going to be at home. She's taking care of my kids. I'm going to be rich enough to take care of her. I'm like, we're all doing background work here.
This guy was definitely living in the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. But was he a background actor as well?
Yeah,
oh, he was just one of you guys.
Yeah, he was just doing background. So it's not like he's some crazy person. Like we're all in the same place, and yet he's saying like it was very 1950s.
And it changes the vibe of the atmosphere.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I had to sit there for hours because I'm like, I'm not going to let you just like sit here and talk like this. But we had a really intelligent conversation, so I appreciated that it wasn't an argument or anything. But exactly, I'm like, I would not expect to show up on set and be talking to a man in his 20s who...
He was in his 20s?
He was in his 20s, like his late 20s, probably his late 20s.
I picture like an older 50, 60-year-old man who's definitely voting for Trump.
Absolutely no. He was young, fit, like seemingly, like he was a dancer, like like an artist, you know, he's definitely like a creative
very
performer.
Conservative views.
Incredibly conservative. And we're stuck in holding, and we had to continue this conversation basically until the very end of the day, and it was so emotionally exhausting by the end. I remember talking to one of the girls after, because she and I were parked right next to each other, and so after, when we were going home, we kind of looked at each other like, I feel like I need a nap after that conversation. Like, we didn't do anything here today, but Jesus, was that exhausting and disheartening. But it was also to hear the other men in the circle kind of on our side being like, bro, that's fucked.
Right.
Like, one of the guys, he had like just gotten engaged, and he was like, if my wife wants to work and have a career, she has a career. No, she doesn't need to have like a survival job because I want to take care of her. Totally get that aspect. But like the idea of you want her just in the house doing nothing, cleaning, waiting for you to get home, like, fuck no.
That's wild.
Yeah,
it's like
it really
the
was.
mentality of keep them barefoot and pregnant at the house, right?
That's exactly how he felt, for sure.
Especially in this day and age, it's a good luck telling that to a woman.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I was like, look at me. I'm like, I have bright red hair. I am like piercings, tattoos. Like, you think I'm gonna agree with you in this conversation? Like,
that's wild.
Be fucking for real. Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot. There's a lot of people, you know, because not all actors are super progressive, or, you know, you think of all artists are like liberal and whatnot, but they definitely aren't. And I've definitely been in situations where I question the loyalties and affiliations of the people around me. And the other thing with background actors is we're all actors, so we all like to talk.
Right.
So sometimes someone's going to decide they're going to talk to you all day, whether you want them to or not. And they don't care what they say, what you say. They're just going to keep talking.
They don't
and
take
you
any
get
social
trapped.
cues.
Yeah, exactly. So you get trapped with someone for 10 hours, 12 hours, and you have no choice but to either talk to them, listen to them, or sit in silence.
Right,
which
because
is
in the holding, you can't leave. You have to sit there in that area.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Or at least like when you're on set, like I was doing background and it was a basketball game. So we're in the bleachers and we have to like stay in that one place in the bleachers. So you have to start interacting with the people around you. And those are the only people that are around you until you go to lunch, but then you come back and that's who you're sitting with again. And if you get a weirdo, I mean,
you're stuck.
It makes the day very hard. So that's why I appreciated on Sex Lives of College Girls. It was all these really cool, like-minded people. I made all these friends. I was like, wait, doing background and making friends, you can do that?
Yeah.
I would do that again.
It sounds like that conversation you had with Home Dude from the 1950s who was in his 20s. It sounds like that type of interaction with people that drain you like that is more grueling and exhausting than filming the project itself.
Oh, 1,000%. There are a lot of energy vampires on those sets for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not why I do this. It's a check for me. Right. But some people are like, this is my acting debut. And I'm like, you are one of 200 in a crowd. I don't really think it's that. But hey, if this is what you need to make yourself feel better, to feel like you're really doing something, I'm not going to yuck your yum. But for me, I'm not here taking this super seriously. I'm here, show up, be a body, like basically just be a mannequin.
Right.
Get my check and go home. But
it's rough.
I haven't had to do that luckily in the last background I did was the beginning of May, because everything since then has just been these verticals.
Damn, the vertical soap opera takeover is happening.
Truly.
This is like a Sketcho Show podcast, vertical exclusive. My goodness.
First looks.
First peek behind the vertical. Let me ask you this. God, I was going to ask you something. I totally forgot. Damn you, weed. It was something to do with the vertical stuff that we were just speaking about.
Bong hit.
This is what I was going to ask you. With the uprise of AI and the acting and then the strike that happened last year, where does the AI, I guess, threat, stand with the vertical soap opera crowd industry now? Is there a worry? Because, you show up in a crowd, they can just take isn't that the thing? They can just take your likeness and apply it somewhere else?
Can
they do that with the vertical soap opera thing?
I mean, I guess I don't know enough about that, but the sets typically are really small, and when there's background, it's like very few background because you're dealing vertical. The frame's super small, so you can make a room look super full with 5 people.
Wow!
If you just stack them right, then you can look like there's a whole, like the gala scene that we did for one of them. I think we had 6 extras, and between placing them all, like when I watched it back, I was like, oh no, it looks like there's a pretty full room.
It's like a full room of people.
When we were filming it, we were in a giant room that felt very empty. I was like,
this
how?
Isn't gonna look good.
Yeah, I was like, how are they gonna do this? And then watching it back, I'm like, oh no, I get it, because you're as you were saying in like the blurb you pulled up, it's all about close-ups.
Yeah,
you're not really doing wide shots very often. Everything's pretty like above the waist, if anything.
And with the vertical soap opera, the actual production of it, are they filming it on iPhones?
No, they're filming it on like industry standard, like
cameras.
Ari Alexas. Yeah, no, like really, really, like the equipment that they're using is top tier.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And yet they're able to make it look like it's just it's filmed on a phone or
They
something.
flip the camera sideways. It's so weird to watch. You literally, the camera's flipped sideways, the monitor is flipped sideways, like everything. It looks exactly like a normal set. It's just everything's tilted.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
Where is it going, Eloise? Where is it all going?
I mean, it's turning into an industry that I don't think anyone really expected, but we're now in the soap opera land of very corny, exaggerated scripts that very much follow a formula. Pretty much every project is the same, has the same characters
Formulaic.
and different, very formulaic.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty soon, I think these are going to stop being so formulaic, and they're going to build enough of an audience where better scripts are going to start coming up, and they're going to start getting bigger named actors, because right now everyone is undiscovered in them. They're not really pulling in big names, but the money is starting to get so serious that I was talking about it, like they are going to be pulling names soon because they're going to have the budgets. I mean, even one that I did that I was the lead on, that's coming out this week actually, they had, for just a tiny role at the beginning, they got this TikTok guy that I've been following forever. He's hilarious.
Who is
it? Kyle Prue.
Okay.
So he does on TikTok like 10 things you can say to upset men. And they're very funny. He's very, very funny. And I saw his name on the call sheet and I was like, Kyle Prue is not the TikTok guy. Why would he be doing like a guest star role? Because it was like he didn't even have a name. Like he was a passenger on the airplane.
So he's playing an extra as well.
Yeah, he was playing an extra. And I was like, that's so, like, I was like, oh, maybe he's, I don't know, doesn't have money or something and needs a little check. And then I realized like they brought him on and they were definitely paying him more than they were paying other people because they wanted to use his following, because he has over 1 million followers. So they're like, oh, even if we get you saying one line in this, if we get you to repost that one bit of the video, that automatically goes to a whole other audience that doesn't even necessarily know about this format. And I mean, I don't know how much they paid him, but I don't think it was what they were paying the other background actors.
People with lines,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, the actual actors, because people have lines in it. It's not just all background actors, obviously. Right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But
how
he
many-
was playing like a featured background
Wow.
actor. Like he was just sitting in a plane seat giving like a few funny reactions, and then
Right.
at one point he's like, "Can I change my seat?" Like
Right, that's
very,
the line.
very
Right.
simple. Yeah,
But
and I
that
think
one
they
line's
added
gonna
that
blow
in exactly
Yeah.
because it's a very funny moment.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, okay, so they are starting to think about, can we bring in names to bring in a bigger audience? So I'm like, if they're starting to do that with TikTok people, it's only a matter of time before they start bringing in more bigger name actors to be doing the same thing.
Like Mr. Beast, the guy who's on TikTok. He's one of the richest, most famous people on TikTok.
Oh,
Mr.
really?
Beast. He does all these things, and then he's very philanthropic, where he buys 20 Teslas and gives them away.
Oh, got you. Yeah,
from
yeah.
the money he makes.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
I can see that happening. Because, you would see
Totally.
back in, years ago when Entourage, the show, was a big thing, you would see not influencers, but people who were influencers in pop culture, not necessarily social media influence, because that wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
It was still becoming a thing. But I remember seeing, just a person you recognize it from pop culture who isn't actually like an artist themselves.
Yeah.
And
A personality.
personality.
Yeah.
Well said. And then you're like, oh, that's home dude from blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
they're
And
just
you're
in it.
automatically
Yeah.
more enticed
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, interesting. I recognize this face.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for when this project comes out because I know they're going to be using him to capitalize. I'm like, I've been following this man for at least a couple years.
Yeah.
So the fact that my face will probably pop up on something he reposts, I'm like,
That'll be dope.
very funny.
Yeah.
It is very, like, not something I'd ever expect from going into these jobs.
The social media connection to the vertical soap opera takeover mixed with the Quibi, mixed with the Netflix, everything's
Yeah.
it's totally a new hybrid type of
Absolutely.
industry now.
Yeah. Because I mean, streaming services are getting oversaturated, and I think everyone the 30-minute TV show has kind of died in a lot of ways. Pretty much everything I feel
I
like
was
you're
just
watching
about
is
to say that.
45 minutes to an hour, which I love, because I like long form content. I mean, I've been rewatching Desperate Housewives and 8 seasons. I mean, I love it. Like, I love that I can just follow these characters kind of infinitely.
Right.
But the attention span of the world right now is not that.
Isn't it wild how, like, you say you like long content, people like long form interviews, right? Mm-hmm. And podcasting, I would suspect, is in that category of long form, whatever, because you get 1 hour, 2 hour, even Rogan has 3 hour long podcasts. And then yet when it comes to TV shows, people's attention spans or even TikTok videos aren't that. It's weird how in certain categories, people want long form, right? So they can just...
That's why they can have a 3-hour Dune movie.
Right.
But then, TikTok's everything is like 15 seconds. And sometimes even me, I'm guilty of this when I see like a minute long TikTok. Sometimes I'll watch, maybe like 30, 40 seconds, but I'll very rarely stay to the actual end of the video if it's longer than 30 seconds. Which I even recognize myself. I'm like, that's kind of crazy.
It's stories too. If I watch a story on IG.
I'm never watching it all the way through.
If it's a minute long and you see that status bar slowly creeping across to the right, I'm like, bro, come on, man.
All right, swipe.
Yeah,
never mind.
Skip ahead. But every now and again, I'll watch. But I'm telling you, even a picture post that's only like 15, maybe 13 seconds, 10 seconds. As soon as it gets halfway through, I'm like, I saw the picture, skip ahead.
Exactly.
But yet, podcast or a Howard Stern interview, it's an hour, 2 hours long with Post Malone. I'm listening to the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It's weird how humans have that weird connection to some things that are long form, and then other things, they can't stand it if it's longer than 5 seconds. It's just bizarre to me.
Yeah, and I think it's birthed out of that idea. Like, people want a longer story, but they want it digestible in tiny little chunks. So you can still watch a feature film, but you don't have the same pressure of watching a feature film because it's broken up into minute-long episodes.
Yeah. You know, it's wild, Eloise, is the only time I can watch a whole movie without stopping or pausing is if I go to the movie theater. It's the only way I have to, it's like you're paying for a ticket to not just watch the movie, but it's like an event because you're sitting in this auditorium, a theater, and you're focused on the movie. Maybe you have to get up for a bathroom break, which always gives me the excuse to see the movie again, right? At some point, because I'm like, I missed that one part, so I'll watch it again. But I rewatch movies all the time, just like you rewatch Desperate Housewives.
Oh, yeah.
I've been rewatching a lot of TV shows that I've already seen a few times, and yet when I watch it, I always pick up on something new. And I find rewatching things from a certain time period is very comforting. Right? Oh. There's something very comforting about it.
I think that's why I've been watching Desperate Housewives lately, is because, I mean, it came out when I was
you're a little baby.
Kid.
You're like a little baby.
Like an actual small child. And I have the reason I feel very connected to the show is because my dad would watch it all the time. And my dad, he traveled for work pretty much my entire childhood. So he was home like very rarely. And he'd come home, we'd like have dinner, whatever, then we'd have to go to bed because I was like 4 years old, 5 years old.
Jesus, and that's fucked up.
Yeah,
because I remember being in my 20s when that show came out, okay? That's just wrong. Go ahead.
But I would hear him watching downstairs, and I would very consistently pretend like I couldn't go to bed, and I would go lay on the couch and try and pretend to fall asleep on his lap, but I would just have my head towards the TV watching, and I thought I was being so slick that he would have no idea that I'm watching. He looks down, he sees my eyes open, I'd be laughing with the show, I was fully watching the whole thing, but being that young, I had no idea what was happening. I was just like, oh my God, look at all these pretty ladies in their suburban houses with their families and the kids. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean,
who are the other ones? I forgot.
Eva Longoria, Terry Thatcher.
Yeah. I remember Terry Thatcher had an accident on set and got a light bulb blew out and pieces of glass went right into her eye.
What?
And it was a big story. I mean, literally shards of a light bulb in her eye.
That's so scary.
And she's good now, but I mean, it's just like, bro, we get hazard pay for this?
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope so. They paid for everything.
But that's so sweet. You'd sneak downstairs and watch it and pretend like you were asleep, thinking my dad doesn't know, and he just looking, your eyes are open.
Exactly. He's like, but I think because we spent so little time together, he was like, you know what, she can watch the show, even though it was for sure not appropriate for me to be watching as a kid. But it's funny watching it back now because I remember all of the events, all of the major events, but watching it as an adult that has a little bit of life experience, there were so many things that were just completely going over my head. Yeah, like, I mean, Eva Longoria's, it starts with her having an affair with a 16-year-old. And in my mind, I was just like, well, of course she's going to have an affair with him. He's so hot. Like, even as a kid.
Even as a kid?
Even I was like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Because, I mean, I don't know what that actor's name is, but he was the one that was in John Tucker Must Die.
John Tucker Must Die.
Yeah, he played John Tucker. He was just, heartthrob, like definition of a teenage heartthrob. So me as a little kid, I was like, well, of course. And now me as an adult.
Calfee?
Probably.
Here, you see. I pulled up the Google for you.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, he is pretty. Look at him.
Yeah, very pretty.
He's got the Drake beard now.
Oh. Yeah, he was a little more clean cut playing a 16-year-old. But me now as an adult looking back, I'm like, that's really fucked. Because she was a grown woman.
Yeah.
And he was not only her employee, but he was a high school student.
I dare them to try to make that today.
Oh, no, there's so many things that happen in that show and they're said in that show that absolutely would not be able to be made today. But you can say that about pretty much anything before 2010.
I think even right up till 2016. There was a lot of movies I saw just before 2016, before the Me Too, Harvey Weinstein blew up.
Before Trump made the world
all that shit
disintegrating place. Yeah.
All that happened. I mean, all those movies right before then, there was a lot of crazy script talk. I mean, a lot of I was like, oh, you can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore.
I mean, it's interesting that there's kind of, I think, a pretty direct correlation with that and the downfall of comedic movies. We don't have comedy right now in that, I feel like right now the podcast world and the stand-up world is really big, but in terms of big budget feature films of comedies, like the way that Adam McKay and Judd Apatow were doing it in the early 2000s, they can't make those movies anymore.
There's Something About Mary.
Something About Mary.
It.
Oh, no.
Never. Couldn't make
Absolutely not. Anchorman. There are a lot of things in Anchorman that would not be able to be made today.
People would be like, there'd be a overcorrect and like a cancel culture overcorrected type of movement. Yes. There'd be like a war in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what's happening right now is everyone's too afraid to be even on the line, and especially when there's that much money involved. I think that's why podcasts are kind of the only places where that's happening, because it's comedians just able to shoot the shit, and if they get shit for it, they get shit for it. But it's not, the stakes are not nearly as high when you have tens of millions of dollars riding on the success of this movie. You can't have backlash like that. So those movies just aren't being made. And it's kind of, I mean, in some ways I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to see racism or sexism or homophobia on screen. I don't think it's funny, but also, we've gone into the overcorrecting stage where people won't even just make a joke about someone or even being ugly or being stupid because everyone's too afraid to just cross the line and offend somebody.
It's true, because even the mention of the topic can piss people off. Where you're just referring to a conversation or something like a referral, and just you even talking about it upsets people. It's everybody's just so sensitive now. There's no way around it.
And there's pros and cons to it. I think awareness and sensitivity are really important because we did lack that as a society for so long, and so many people were getting hurt from these things and without it being acknowledged. But also, sometimes to get a really important point across, you can't be worried about stepping on people's toes, because even if it might be a roundabout way, sometimes the point needs to be made.
Right. And you have to have that open discourse. Yeah. Even if you don't agree with the other person's view or what, the guy, the 1950s 20-year-old that you worked with, right? You may not agree with him, and you may even hate him for what his views are, right? But that's the whole point of what we're doing in this country, is to be able to disagree
and have an actual healthy dialogue about it. I think that's why, even in all the really frustrating things he was saying, I really appreciated that he was still listening to me, even though I'm a woman and he clearly had his opinions on women. Right. He still was totally down to hear me out. And we had a really, really interesting conversation that neither of us necessarily walked away thinking anything different. But I think it was interesting to hear that perspective from someone that, is younger and creative. And by all intents and purposes, when you look at him, you would think like, oh, this is like a cool progressive dude.
But he's not.
But then he's not,
Yeah.
you know? And just even, I mean, anytime I hear a younger person talking like that, it's always very interesting to me because we live in a society that's, you know, free love and polyamory and, you know, like feminism and all this stuff. So to hear someone that grew up in a world that's all about that, still feeling the way that people did decades ago when no one was talking about it. Yeah. But I mean, I've definitely met a couple of younger people over the last few years that feel that way. Even women, like I definitely have girlfriends that are like, I don't actually want to work. Like I don't want to be a girl boss that takes care of everything and everyone and has like 10 million jobs. Like I would like to have a family and take care of my family and be at home and live that life. And I think
that's okay.
That voice, and I think that voice has also been very silenced.
For sure, because people take offense to it.
Exactly.
Immediately.
They're
if
like,
you're
how
one
dare
of those
you?
women that wants to be not taken care of, but taken care of in certain aspects of the marriage.
Yeah.
Because when two people get married, it's like two companies merging.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a contract.
Right.
Literally.
And somebody has to do one thing and then your assignment. So even if the roles reverse, if it was the dude that stayed at home like Mr. Mom, that's fine too.
And that happens all the time.
But you don't hear men going, no, like nobody.
No, a man wants to stay at home, take care of the kids, and just like watch TV, cook and clean. Yeah, he's going to be pretty happy. It's not
pretty praised too.
And it's not a horrible life, but we have this stigma of like if you're almost less than if you aren't going after your dreams and trying to be the most successful version of whatever you want to do. I mean, it's a very capitalist mindset. It's very American because you don't really see it in other countries in the same
way
that you do here. They're like, do what you want to do. If you want to be a career person, go be a career person. If you want to be a family person, be a family person. There's nothing wrong with either of it.
You know, just to go back to the Desperate Housewives thing real quick, because I was going to say, I think based on what you told me, I think you relate to that show because it's very nostalgic of your dad.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like your memories of your father, spending the time laying next to him while pretending to be asleep while watching and not understanding the jokes. Yeah. I get that. Mm-hmm. I do get that because there's certain movies that come on. Like there's this old movie with Danny DeVito and Billy Crystal called Throw Mama from the Train.
Okay.
Right? And it's really funny. Again, probably a movie that you can't make today, right? Yeah. It's not raunchy, like sexual.
I mean, Throw Mama from the Train is a crazy
just the title.
Like, I'm like,
people would be freaking out. Heads would explode.
Yeah.
But the story.
No.
Yeah. No, not Mama.
Who the hell are you?
I'm Owen's friend.
Owen doesn't have a friend.
That's because he's shy.
No, he's not. He's fat and he's stupid. Get out of my house. Where is Owen?
Owen went bowling.
I want Owen.
I'll be back in a minute.
I want my bath. I want my medicine.
I can get it for you.
Who the hell are you all of a sudden?
Let me hang it up for you.
I can hang up my own goddamn.
I know that, but I would like to hang it up for
you.
you.
Get out of my way, you black bastard.
What?
The story is so funny. And the fact that my mom, when she was alive, she loved that movie. She loved the movie so much. She would just bring it up in conversation sometimes. And she was like, oh, like the movie Throw Mama from the Train. So anytime I'm working, and I like to have the TV on, movies running while I'm working. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily watching the movie. I just like to have it on
like white
atmosphere.
Noise.
Yeah, kind of. And I've already seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
But anytime that movie comes on, I just leave it on. Just thinking like, well, if my mom's here with me, she can watch it.
Yeah, we can watch together. No, totally. I think that's that makes a lot of sense. I definitely feel a similar way about Desperate Housewives, even though my dad is alive and we could watch it together. Yeah. But
yeah, it's true. I mean, there is something very comforting and nostalgic about old TV shows that take you into a certain time, or even if it's not just nostalgic, but watching something as an adult again that you didn't quite understand as a child.
Yeah.
It really, it's something very gratifying about that, where you're like, oh, shit, I get it now. Now I understand what they're saying, whereas I didn't, decades ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I have that experience with cartoons a lot because I watch a lot of cartoons. Oh. And recently I've been rewatching SpongeBob.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's all on, I think, Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
And so that
was your era. That was as a child.
That was very much it. I think it came out in 99 and I'm born in 99. So we're like, I actually think we looked it up the other day. It came out like 2 weeks before I was born. So me and SpongeBob are the same age.
You guys are like neck and neck.
Yeah, exactly. And but I mean, you watch it as a kid and it's made for kids, obviously. So I was very much digesting everything. But as pretty much all cartoons do, the writers also know that parents are watching, so they sneak in these
adult jokes.
referencing and adult jokes and like references to culture and the news and like politics and stuff that as a kid you just have no concept
and you don't even care.
Yeah, exactly. I'm watching Sandy Cheeks in her dome. Like Patrick is doing something. There's the you know. If
I was a character on SpongeBob, I think I'd be that squid guy.
Squidward?
That'd be me. Yeah, that'd be me. I got that look for sure.
Yeah.
He's cool.
I could see it. No, he's great. I mean, he's realistically the only normal one there that he's like, what is going on?
Right.
What is this chaos around me? But yeah, rewatching it, because I've been kind of watching as background noise, like when I just am cleaning the apartment or whatever, I just want to have something on, and I'll be watching something and there'll be a reference to some pop culture thing that definitely little kids would have no idea about. And I'm like, whoa, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think Shrek is also a very good example of that.
That was one of the first animated movies for kids, but made for adults.
Yeah.
Like
there's some real raunchy jokes in there. Yeah. Oh my God.
They get away with it because it's
ogres and a talking donkey.
It's fantasy.
Yeah.
And yet the gingerbread man, the sexual innuendos, it's wild. Puss in Boots, bro, what?
Yeah. And how he's like very much this like suave, sexy cat. And I'm like, why are we making a cat sexy? Like, I don't know. This is for kids.
And yet he's so adorable when he puts on the eyes.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Exactly.
It's like my heart is exploding. Yeah. And I'm not even really a cat guy, but when I saw that Puss in Boots, was it Puss in Boots 2 that came out?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I forgot that they did
with
the whole...
wolf. The wolf character?
I think I watched the first one. I don't think I watched the second one.
I watched the first one, but I didn't really care about it. And then the second one came out and it was on Netflix. And I was like, all right, let me check it out. I got rave reviews. And I was like, this shit is fantastic.
Really? Okay,
so
now I'm going to go watch Puss in Boots 2.
It was bomb. Let's make sure that was the right one. Hold on. Let me pull it up real quick. Puss in Boots. I'm spelling it right. Even my Google's all, what are you writing?
He's like, are you sure?
Let me see. Puss in Boots 2. Yeah, that's it. The Last Wish. Yeah. That's the move. You got to watch that. It was really, really, really good. Like to the point where I was like, I didn't expect this to be as outstanding. I thought it was just going to be a fun animated Shrek type movie.
Yeah.
It is. But it's so much fucking more. Like the level of writing, the layers of writing, the subtlety to certain jokes and certain touching things that are sentimental are so well executed. I was just like, man. And then I watched the full credits at the end, and there was one guy who did all the sound design. One guy. And I was like, hats off. Because I'm a sound designer.
Crazy.
You know, when I see sound design guys like for Quiet Place and all that shit, I'm like, yo.
That's nuts.
It gets
me
like
especially for like animated movies, because the sound on those is
it's all about the sound.
So important.
It's
it's always important, but like, when you voiceover and then sound effects, and it's like because you're not filming anything, there's nothing, like the animation itself is silent, so you have to put all of that there. There's nothing that you're no chink of a glass is there. You have to create all of that.
And it has to fit everything perfectly. You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, dude, who is that? Like that was next level type of sound design,
that is
especially
really
for that movie.
Oh my gosh.
So let's see where we're at here. Oh, almost at an hour. Okay, perfect. Yo, thank you. There's been a very enlightening vertical soap opera background acting thrilling conversation, I must say. Very enlightening. And I really appreciate you being here, Eloise, and sharing your insight and all that with me.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
I love talking.
Hold on, let me get into it.
Yeah, let me get into
it. Since we're on that subject, then I'm going to switch it to dating and today's temperature and dating apps. But as far as the British thing goes, can you give us another dose of your British accent that I so much adore?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I mean, I guess I can talk a bit in my very unspecific British accent.
Yeah. so good. It's so
keep going.
keep going.
I'm like,
you say, would you like a cup of tea?
would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Should I just, list off my grocery list, my to-dos?
Yeah. You shopping at Whole Foods these days or Trader Joe's?
No, I definitely prefer Whole Foods at this point because Trader Joe's is really only good for frozen food, and I'm not in college anymore, so I try and cook my meals and eat real produce like an adult.
Damn, that's good.
But sometimes those Trader Joe's meals really come in handy.
Wow. Have you had a role yet? Here, before we switch topics, what is your biggest role you've had, right? And have you had any roles that required you to do the British accent?
Oh, I mean, I've definitely had roles that required a British accent. Nothing on film, pretty much all on stage.
Like theater, right?
Yeah, theater stuff. I've definitely had to do British accents on stage before. It's been a while since anyone's asked me to do it very seriously. I mean, I did in an acting class a few months ago. The scene that I was in, we were playing the Bronte sisters, so we had North English accents, which I mean, those are tricky when you're really getting into like the specifics.
North English, what does that sound like? Can you give us a bar of that?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can do it. I don't know how to describe it.
No worries, we'll skip it. It
was something that was like in the moment. I was like very focused on it, but yeah, I would need to like refocus on it to be able to get it back to where it was.
And what about the biggest role that you've had?
I mean,
or biggest project that you've worked on?
Biggest is it's kind of a relative term, because in terms of like, oh yeah, biggest budget, like I've been on big budget sets, and I did a feature, or I had a very small role in a SAG feature earlier this year.
What was it?
And it's called Under the Lights. It's a feature. It originally started as a short that did really well on the festival circuit, that they are now making the feature of it, and it's all about epilepsy.
2020 film?
No,
sorry, I looked that up. It's a drama short.
Oh yeah.
That's
so
it?
then in 2020 the short. Yes, exactly. So they made the feature of it, and it's all about epilepsy, and my mom has epilepsy and is very, very involved in the epilepsy community.
And that's like epilepsy seizures, right?
Yes,
Is that what they go into because of flashing lights and stuff? You know how they have those disclaimers at the beginning of a movie and stuff, or a video game? That
can be a trigger, and that's part of what this movie is about. But I mean, seizures can be triggered by anything, everything. Wow. Some people have photosensitive epilepsy, other people don't. Like my mom, her epilepsy isn't photosensitive.
What causes it?
I mean, it could be so many different things. It could be stress. It could be trauma. You can have like epilepsy induced by a brain injury. Wow. Sometimes they're just out of nowhere. There's still a lot of mystery as to what exactly is causing everything, and there's so many different types of seizures as well. It's not always like what you think of as the grand mal seizure of someone like on the ground shaking. I mean, people could be like we could be sitting here right now and I could have a seizure just like sitting here, and we'd still be having conversation, and neither of us would even technically really know.
Wow. Because I remember when I'm back in my partying days, I was essentially doing so much blow that I remember having where my hands and feet went numb. Yeah. No, actually it wasn't even blow. It was caused from like this really bad ecstasy I took. Yeah. And I think it was cut with speed or too much caffeine or something. Yeah. I mean, it was not good. Something
that's not supposed to.
I had to go to the ER. The ER was my saving place, because I walked in there and I thought I was going to black out, and I didn't. I was able to continue, just like you said, have a conversation, but I was like, I can't feel my hands. Yeah. I can't feel. That's a type of seizure, right?
I don't know if that's necessarily a type of seizure, but I mean, also you can still have seizures without having epilepsy.
Damn.
There are people that have seizures. Like my sister has had seizures before, but because of my mom, she's been tested 1 million times by the best doctors in the country, and she doesn't have it, but she gets stress-induced seizures.
Now,
and so that can
genetic?
still happen.
Is it inherited? Do you have those now?
I don't. I've only had a seizure once, and it was very like illness induced. I had like really bad food poisoning, and then I was in like a hot bath trying to sweat it out, and I got out of the hot bath and turned the shower on cold, and when the cold water hit me, I blacked out, and when I came to, my mom was like holding me, and I was like, oh, I passed out, and she was like, well, you had a seizure, but it's okay, it's
like
fine.
You were like convulsing. God damn.
Yeah, but that was such a singular, specific,
right? Obviously, from the heat exhaustion and then going to the cold.
Exactly, you can have heat exhaustion can cause seizures, and then people with epilepsy are more prone to those things. But I mean, there are people that have epilepsy that are having thousands of seizures a day, and then people like my mom who has been essentially seizure free for almost 35 years. She only has had 2 seizures in my lifetime.
And there's no medication for that, is there?
There is.
Oh, there is? Does she take anything?
She is one of the very lucky people that her seizures are controlled by medication. And there are medications that, some people, they can be 100% controlled, like my mom. And then other people, it just helps minimize things. It helps the day go on. But I mean, the brain is just so tricky, and there's so much we don't know. And even with all the research that they do, it's still, I mean, there's, I don't know if you know what SUDEP is. So SUDEP stands for sudden unexplained death by epilepsy.
Whoa.
And it's its own thing, its own subsection of the epilepsy world and foundation, because it is such a thing where like sometimes one seizure, you don't know for whatever reason, it just
kills you.
It just kills you.
Is it as rare as like SIDS, the sudden infant death syndrome? I
don't know what the numbers are, but it's probably something similar. But the actor Cameron Boyce, the Disney actor, that's what he died of. He had epilepsy and he had a seizure in his sleep and never woke up. And there's no explanation.
Right.
And he's a young, healthy boy with his whole career ahead of him. Middle of the night, there's nothing you can do, and
reminiscent, and reminds me of it's not seizure what killed this man, but John Ritter, who was in Three's Company, how he died on 8 Simple Rules to date my teenage daughter. This is way back in the day. This is probably even before you were born, maybe right when you were born. The show was out, and he just died on set. It was a heart valve, or like a vein, or a valve in his heart that he was born with. That was going to happen, and nobody could diagnose it. They didn't know it was there. He's acting on stage. He's rehearsing scenes with his other actor co-stars, and he just dropped dead. Just boom, instantly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What? There was no prerequisite or walk up or like something that added up to it. It just boom. It's something you're just born with.
And that's what can happen with epilepsy too. There's no rhyme or reason, and I mean, scary. The numbers are definitely scary, especially within the epilepsy community, because there's not something specific you can do to prevent it. You know?
In this movie, Under the Lights that you were in,
I was in very briefly. Like I have a one line.
Really? You have a line?
Yeah, I have one line. But the scene was with me and Nick Offerman and this girl, Sophie, who's also a Disney kid that was brought onto the project because she was friends with Cameron, and that was such a big deal that in their community, they really started, promoting awareness, especially amongst younger people. And that's specifically what this movie is doing, is it's bringing awareness, but to a younger generation, because it's a high school movie and it's talking about like the struggles of having epilepsy as a teenager. And it's, the goal is to really bring awareness to that. So I was brought onto that project essentially through my mom, because she was meeting with the director just in general epilepsy community things, and mentioned that I was acting in LA, and he was like, oh, well, we need people. Damn. And especially high school people that are able to play high school, which I still can. Yeah. So I popped on to set for a day, and it was, being able to work with Nick Offerman was great. So even if it was just for
Nick Offerman was the president in Civil War.
I know. It was funny because I just watched that a few days before we shot it.
Really?
So I was like, oh gosh, it's so weird to be like seeing you in a movie theater, and then we're like getting our hair done next to each other. Like he was like getting a haircut while they were like curling my hair, and we were just chatting.
Wait, Civil War came out last year?
No, Civil War came out in April
of this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm sorry. This movie came out in 2020, right?
The short did.
The short came out in 2020.
They've been filming the feature this year. It'll probably be released next year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I filmed this past April. So in some ways you could say that that's like one of the biggest things I've done, because that's what got me SAG eligible. But I'm most excited for a feature that was actually written and directed by one of my best friends, Rose Trimboli. We shot it in September of 2022, actually. And it's a feature-length horror that I'm the lead in.
What?
And it's not out yet. It's like, it'll be done by this September. Like, we're in the very final stages. We're just starting to do promo and all that kind of stuff now. But that is the thing that I'm most excited for.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
This is a feature film.
It's a feature film.
90 minutes or something like that,
yeah,
right?
I think it's around 90, 95, yeah.
And you're the main character.
Yes, and it is very much following me story. I'm in all but like 6 shots.
This
in
is
the
not a vertical
entire
soap
movie.
opera.
No.
This is something you see in the theater, or
Something
is it
you
going
would-
straight to streaming?
No, I don't. Oh gosh, those are the things that
Yeah,
in terms
we'll
of
find
like
out.
festivals and distributors, like I know they're having those conversations, but that's where me as the actor, I'm like, hey, that's not my job.
Right, that's not your department.
Yeah, I'm like, just tell me what to repost or like put on my resume, and then
That's
I'll
wild.
just
I
do
wanted to
that.
ask you real quick. Do you have an agent that represents you?
I do have a manager. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something else I want to ask you about. But real quick, I wanted to point out, in case anybody wants to Google Under the Lights.
Yeah, definitely.
2020 film. It has a picture of a young man wearing a helmet on his
If
head.
you can
It's
find
almost
it
like a
on
baseball
YouTube, it's
helmet.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
it is. Says right
definitely,
here, yeah.
definitely check it out, and then keep your eye out for the feature because I think it's going to be a really beautiful.
So this is
movie.
a short turning into a feature film.
So they shot it as a proof of concept.
Wow.
And then, it got enough traction and attention from the epilepsy community that the foundation helped raise all the money for them to make this feature because it's something that we don't have movies
I haven't
about.
seen anything about it.
No, I've never heard of a movie that's about epilepsy.
No.
Sometimes it'll be in it or there'll be a
Atypical
character.
is about autism.
Yeah,
right.
there's a lot about autism.
Yeah.
There's cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Like there's so many.
Even The Accountant with Ben Affleck was
Yeah.
about autism. He had
Yeah.
autism, but he was like superhero autism.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so much content about disability that is not about epilepsy. Considering that if you're looking at the numbers of who's affected, epilepsy affects more people than pretty much everything else combined.
It's more common.
Way more common, but way less talked about.
Yeah.
So almost everyone I talk to about epilepsy will say, oh, I have a family member or a friend
Or a dog.
or a dog. No, but I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Or I know a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I had it as a kid. And then because you can grow out of it. That's like a fairly common thing is to have seizures as a child and then into your adulthood, they just kind of
Goes away.
disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly, there's so much that we don't know. And there's so many different versions of what it looks like that, I mean, it touches everyone, whether they're realizing it or not. So the fact that there's so little content addressing it is very surprising. So that's why when I found out about this project, I was like, even if it's just a line, get me in the room. I want to support for sure.
Let me clarify something. You're in the short.
No, I'm
you're
not in the short.
Okay, but you're in this feature film
Yeah.
where you have one line in it,
Yeah.
right? But that's still big because the one line.
I mean, the one line made me SAG eligible, so
That's
it
what I'm
opens
saying.
the door.
Yeah.
It opened the door for a lot of things to be happening. And I'm granted we're in a realm of the industry where SAG projects aren't happening at the same rate because strikes and things are just slow. So I'm very much in the non-union vertical world. But I mean, even just the auditions I've been able to get since doing that has definitely moved me forward so that when things are opening up, I've already been in front of people that are interested in having me in things later,
Right, right. That's so dope, though, Eloise. That you haven't. Now, I just wanted to ask you about. You're in this feature film coming soon. It's still of the same title, Under the Lights,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's coming whenever it comes out.
Yes.
You have an agent. How does one go about getting an agent?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many different ways. I went to a conservatory program for college, and most conservatory programs, when you graduate, they do a showcase and they invite all these agents and managers and casting directors to come watch. And a lot of people, that's how they get their representation off the bat. My school, also because I graduated in 2021, so our showcase was all online and there was a mess. And so I had to do what they, or at least I call pay to play showcases. And there are companies that do like workshops with casting directors and agents. And basically you can like pay and go almost audition in front of a casting director or agent in like a very workshop kind of class format. But that's how they do pull. A lot of casting directors will find actors for co-stars, guest stars. You know, they're not necessarily looking for like the leads in those rooms, but at the same time, if they find one, they find one.
Potentials,
absolutely. So it's like almost like a meet and greet kind of situation.
Good networking.
Yeah.
vibe.
And they'll do workshops and then they do showcases. And what brought me out to LA actually is there was a company that I would do their workshops in New York just to like meet casting directors and like, you know, hear their opinions, because we didn't get a ton of that at my school, like actually hearing from those professionals. And they said that they were starting this LA intensive, essentially, where you are here for 2 weeks. Or I mean, a lot of people lived here, but it's in LA for 2 weeks. And every other day you're meeting with we'd meet with like 3 or 4 casting directors a day.
Wow.
And do like a couple hour-long workshops with each of them. And then you had 3 showcases, one for managers, one's for agents, and then one's for commercial reps. And it was like a 2-week kind of intensive thing. And this was right when I was making the decision if I wanted to move to LA from New York, but I didn't want to come out here without representation. I didn't want to just like pick up and move, because things in New York were good, especially in the indie world. Like I was booking a lot of like indie features and I had booked a pilot. And so I was like, if I'm really going to leave New York and go to LA, I need to make it worth my while.
It's a bold move.
Yeah. And so I came out and I told myself, in those 2 weeks that I'm here, if I can get representation in those 2 weeks, if I can get an apartment in those 2 weeks, and if I can get a car, then I'll move. And I very much said to the universe, I was like, I need those 3 things, and all of those 3 things, not just 2 of them at the same time. I have 2 weeks to do it.
Damn.
And a week and a half in, I had all 3.
I mean, that is the universe looking out.
It
for you.
It was definitely one of those things where I was like, all right, this is out of my hands now. The answer is there.
Are you
I asked the question, the answer is there.
Did you pray? I mean, are you
Definitely.
believing God and all that?
I mean, I believe in, I don't know what you would necessarily call it, essentially a God, source, spirit.
Are you religious at all? Like, do you come from like a background like Catholic, Christian, or anything like that?
My family's Jewish.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
but I wasn't raised very Jewish. It wasn't something that was like pushed onto us.
Right.
Like I never had a bat mitzvah.
You're not a practicing.
No. I mean, we'll celebrate the holidays and I kind of know generally, but I'm not someone that goes to Shabbat or even has like a community of Jewish people, because that's very much like my dad's side of the family. And I mean, a lot of my dad's family, all of my dad's family is not in the US. Most of them are in Israel. Some of them are in Canada. Some of them are in Brazil. So I wasn't really raised around the like Jewish part of my family.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't at all get that Jewish vibe from you.
Most people don't. Most people, I say that and I'm like, yeah, but my whole family was like, they're all Holocaust survivors. Like,
really?
My grandma was one of Wallenberg's secretaries.
Are they here now in America?
My grandma is, yeah, but the rest, no one else on my dad's side is. They all, because I mean, my dad's Hungarian, he was born there, but they all escaped during the revolution and they all kind of spread out where they needed to.
And considering today's, you know, with what's happening with Hamas and Israel, is your family that's still in Israel, how are they dealing right now currently? Are you aware of their current status?
In terms of that, we don't really talk to that side of the family about politics because we don't agree.
Right.
Because they have some, considering they're all Holocaust survivors that have firsthand experienced, you know, genocide, oppression,
Hitler,
prejudice, like all of it. It's very surprising hearing how they talk about those situations, you know, without getting
It's almost like the
detail.
1950s 20-year-old guy, right? It's like they're
very
almost
similar.
Interesting.
Very similar. So we kind of just, it's something we just don't talk about when we do talk to them,
It's
which
a
is very
sensitive
rare
subject.
because it's a sensitive
very
subject.
touchy.
And most of the time when we're talking on the phone with them, it's like very short conversations because, you know, huge time differences and
you keep it at the Quibi episode.
Yeah,
time length, 10 minutes.
We keep it short and sweet. We keep it happy.
Yeah. Hello, you alive?
know?
Yep. You good? Did you eat today? Yeah.
Exactly.
How's everything?
I'm
Are
like,
you sick? You healthy?
I'm like, I think for us in America, at least my family with that situation, is we kind of let them do their thing. And until we hear that there is like a physical danger to them, then we'll worry and we'll talk about it. But at this point, we
just love them from afar.
Yeah,
Copy
definitely. Like family, love family. Don't have to agree with family.
Oh no, I got family members that I can only take them in short bursts.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then after that, it starts to get to the point where we're going to start arguing and debating about stupid shit or things that happened 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like my dad's cousins, they're all older and kind of at the point in their lives where their opinions aren't changing.
Right. They're set in their ways. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not really worth even having those arguments because people are just going to get mad for the sake of being mad.
Well, that was definitely like a Sketcho Show podcast exclusive because I will tell you that I didn't at all. I honestly thought I was like, she probably doesn't even really believe in any type of higher power. She's like agnostic
no, definitely.
or something. I
am a very spiritual person. I definitely believe that there is a lot about the world that's happening that we cannot see, but that we can feel.
Right.
I don't know. I think I'm a very intuitive person. I have enough evidence in my life to know that when I'm tapped into something else going on that doesn't necessarily have a name, or at least I haven't found a name that I feel like represents it accurately. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't subscribe to any one religion
right.
or thought process. I mean, I've explored a lot. I definitely, growing up, I was like, I'm Buddhist, I'm a pagan, I'm agnostic. I went all over the place. Like I really have had moments of believing and not believing in so many different things. And at this point I've realized it's not about finding a religion or a practice that you fit into. It's a feeling of like connectedness that I'm following, and whatever I can do, whether that's like meditation or even when I'm like drawing or doing candle work, or I read runes as like a divination source. Yeah. And so there's things like that I've realized for me over the years make me feel more connected to the whole. But what works for me does not always work for everyone. So I'm never telling people advice or like, it's not even something I talk about super often because it's very personal.
Yeah, and it could set people off. Yeah, people take it personally.
People take it personally, and I think people don't understand. Like when I talk about reading runes, it's like when people talk about tarot, and you're like, "Oh, you really believe like the cards are going to tell you your future?" I'm like, "No, I don't believe the cards are going to tell me my future, or that the runes are going to tell me exactly what's going on tomorrow."
Right,
but it helps me tap into a higher consciousness of my own that sometimes when you're looking at information in a different way, because you're not the one writing it out, you're able to see situations for what they are or for a different perspective. And that makes me feel more connected. But a lot of people are like, this is bullshit. I don't care.
What
and I'm like,
runes?
That's fair.
Exactly. Can you explain what? Because I know the tarot card thing, but what is runes like tarot?
Runes is like tarot in the sense that it's a form of divination, but it's a much older.
Is it on cards or is it like stones?
There's stones. And the carving, like the actual, like there are rune stones, but then runes is an alphabet. And it's one of the oldest alphabets that we have. It's from kind of like the northern part
is
of
it
Europe.
Like Nordic?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. So it's a rune is a letter in a set of related alphabets known as runic alphabets native to the Germanic peoples. Runes were used to write Germanic languages with some exceptions before they adopted the Latin alphabet and for specialized purposes thereafter. Yeah. So this is like what you'd see with that movie, The Northman. Like that type of writing?
Yes, definitely.
With what's his name? Skarsgård?
Exactly. It's like it's used as actual language, but then each of the runes have, a story behind them and they all represent different things. And so similar to tarot, like pulling one rune when you're asking a certain question will give you, different answers, so to speak. And, it's the same where like you have a spread and each different placement means a different thing. So depending on what rune is in what placement, you have different information coming to you.
Is it like, can you predict things with it? Like tarot? Like where it's these future type of visions?
I don't think it's so much like predicting the future as in it's more like when you look at what's happening, what is the likely outcome? But it's all logic. It's all things that conclusions you could come to if you just think hard enough about it. But sometimes you have to get your own ego and thoughts out of the way to even see the information. So it's like you're getting it from another source, but you're still getting it from yourself. It's not another person.
The universe.
Exactly. But they say with all divination, so tarot, runes, scribing, like all that kind of stuff, you're not talking to God, you're talking to your own higher power, like your own higher consciousness. You're talking to the part of yourself that can see everything for what it is, that doesn't have all of the ego and anxiety and all the extenuating circumstances clouding your brain and clouding your judgment.
You for real
that
inside.
You're accessing. So
it's almost like when people take DMT or mushrooms, they or peyote, they have those experiences where it's almost like those drugs, for lack of a better term, also are like a portal to your inner self, right? And your consciousness of telling you things you need to not worry about as to oppose the things you need to worry about. Rogan always talks about that shit.
Exactly. Yeah. So in terms of, predicting the future, it's not so much about, I know I'm going to see a bluebird tomorrow. It's like, okay, well, if this situation is what it is and I keep approaching it from this position, this is probably what the outcome is going to be. But if I want the outcome to be something else, maybe I need to change my position. And those are the kinds of things that I look for when I'm giving myself readings. It's more like, am I on the right track? Like, is what I'm doing right now helping me achieve the end result that I want? And sometimes it's like, absolutely, like you're doing what you need to. And then there's other times where things pop up and they're like, maybe you need to relook at this. And it kind of just gets your brain thinking of like, well, why is it asking me to, re-examine this part of my life or this part of my psyche or self? And then the more you think about it, you're like, oh, that's what it's telling me. Because it's all very interpretive and it's very personal.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, I'm learning anything from the stones. I'm getting information from them. And then my brain and my spirit, whatever, is then kind of translating it into my life and my circumstances.
Applying it to your own self. Yeah. Right. Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, these are some exclusives right here. I got to tell you. When was the last time you did a podcast, Eloise?
I've never done a podcast.
Another Sketcho Show podcast exclusive. Wow, really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
I don't think so. Well, I did. I a few years ago, I did a nudist film, actually.
Whoa.
That was sponsored by, the American Naturist Association, the Southern California Naturist Association. And during the promo for that piece, we were briefly interviewed, I think, on a podcast, because I did a lot of media stuff for them.
And it was about nudists.
Yeah, it was about nudist naturists.
Wow. And did you have to be nude in it?
Yeah, I did, but it was a pandemic project, so it was all on Zoom. And so we filmed on Zoom in our own homes, and like the movie was a Zoom call. Like that's the format.
But
so they were able to
be nude on Zoom?
I had to be nude on Zoom, but
How did that feel?
It was interesting. I mean, I'm a very comfortable person. Just like those kinds of things don't really faze me, but also because I was filming it in my own home. I'm my own camera person. So nothing was seen that I didn't want to be seen at any point that I didn't want. I mean, at some point in the movie, you do see me standing up fully naked, but also it's a comedy. There's nothing sexual about it, which is part of why I did it. It's it's like a Meet the Parents Naturist edition is the plot. So it's very like kitschy comedy, lots of puns, like very goofy.
What's it called?
It's called Disrobed.
Disrobed. Where can we find Disrobed?
It's not something you can find.
It's not out
anywhere. Well, so because
it never came out.
Because of the nature of it, it's exclusively like you have to see it going to a screening. So they actually have a screening of it in a couple of weeks in New York that they wanted me to come to, but obviously I can't.
Not flying back to New York,
I can't. I mean, they said they could have flown me out, but I was like, timing wise, it just doesn't make sense right now. But they do.
Nudists. I mean, these are crazy. You had an epilepsy film.
Yeah, epilepsy film, a horror film about vampires where I eat a bunch of people. And
are you the main character comedy. In that too?
That's the feature that. Yeah.
What's that one called?
It's called You Know What You Are.
You Know What You Are.
Yeah. Written, directed by Rose Trimboli.
What? Oh, and that's your friend.
Yeah, that's my friend. So that's the one that I'm expecting to be in terms of biggest things.
These are like three big projects I'm hearing so far. Obviously the vampire thing, right? Under the Lights, which sounds very touching and just, really unprecedented cool because nobody's talked about epilepsy on this level yet.
Totally.
This should be a trendsetter for that. And then also this nudist comedy.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, when people are like, what do you like to do? Drama or comedy? I'm like, guys, I do all of it.
You're definitely versatile.
For better or for worse, I do all of it. But yeah, that was fun, but it was it's funny because like we film it in our house, we film it on Zoom. I'm screen recording my like Zoom call and then they're like cutting it together to be a Zoom call as the film.
Wow.
And I mean, it's definitely made the rounds internationally within the naturist community. They've had screenings all over the world for the last, I filmed this in 2020. So for the last almost 4 years that it's been
making its rounds.
Definitely making its rounds. I even I reprised the character in like very briefly had a cameo in another nudist film that, but yeah, someone that we actually, who had I don't know if he had a radio show or a podcast, but he interviewed us and the project has done really well within that community. And so he was making another kind of like celebration of the naturist community movie. And he had me and the other lead come and do a little cameo as our characters in that. So it's been very funny how that little Zoom project I did over COVID that I never thought anything of.
I mean, your naked Zoom
all over
at the
place.
House filming went miles. I mean, leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And hold on, I'm taking this all in. I'm digesting all this information. You just transpire. I mean, you just.
We hit a lot of topics.
Yeah, but I want to say, or I want to ask, just to close out the initial question, which went back a little ways from where we're at now. But in order to get that agent, you essentially, we went to runes and all that.
My gosh, that was the original question. That's crazy.
That was the original question.
God.
So you got an agent by essentially thinking to the universe and the runes, getting a car, getting either a job and an agent, right? Those are the three things that
or just representation, because I have a manager, not an agent. You
have a manager.
Yeah, but just having representation.
Right. But how did that happen? How did did you find that manager and you connected? Did he or she reach out to you or you reached out?
I actually love this story. So I'm, met with all these people in the showcase, sent them all my information. So they have my resume, they have my headshots, they have any footage like reel of me that I was submitting at the time.
Do they have you going, let me get into it?
No, I wish.
Only I have that.
Yeah, exactly. That's your exclusive. But I got a few emails from people that were interested and they were wanting to set up meetings, and I was still in LA. I was here for about almost a week after we finished up with all the showcase stuff, and I was doing a little day player role on a movie that's a whole other story. Okay. But I just had like a little mini job to do while I was here. And I'm on my way to that job and I get a phone call from an unknown number, which 10 times out of 10, I don't answer those.
Same.
I just send them straight to
a
voice.
Bot call.
Yeah, exactly.
Unknown
it's pretty much
too.
Always spam, but I don't know what came over me, but I was driving when I got the call and I was downtown and I pulled over. Whoa. I fully pulled over, stopped the car, answered the phone and was like, hi. And it was this guy, Mitch, and he was like, hey, listen, like I'm Mitch. I was part of the showcase. I'm a manager. I'm really interested in working with you. That's not why I'm calling though. Like, do you have a second? And I was like, sure. Like I'm intrigued. And he's like, I hope you're not offended by this, but I really like your look and I really like your performance. And you sent me all of your info and I saw a breakdown for the lead in a mini series that I think you'd be perfect for, and I submitted you and they're now asking for an audition. Do you want to do it? Like, is that okay? Wow. Like, he was very like, I don't mean to be weird, but like, I think you'd be
pretty dope,
good
though.
at this.
He took the initiative for
totally
you.
Took the initiative.
Right.
And I'm just that, and the fact that he just called me, because everyone else I'd been talking to on email, and he just fully calls me. And I've had representation before. And it's always like email. Like I've never met the person. It's always like I meet them on like a Zoom or, you know, something. And we just like email back and forth. They'll send me a few auditions, but nothing that ever stuck. No one that I stayed with past the year contract or whatever. And so him calling me, I was like, well, absolutely. I'll do the audition. Like, duh. And I did it, and I ended up being in the final 2, and it just came down to I looked too young for the role, which it was supposed to be like a fantasy kind of almost like Game of Thrones style, and I was like a warrior. And I'm like, I look like a chipmunk.
You look like Xena, the warrior.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, I look so like tiny and young and small. And they're like, they loved my performance, but it came down to like the other woman they ended up casting looked like an Amazon. Right. Yeah, she just like looked like she could be in charge more than I could, which is so fair. But the fact that I made it all the way to the second round, he called me after and he was like, do you want to keep working together? Because I will just keep submitting you right. and helping you if you want. And
you've been with him ever since.
I've been with him ever since. And that was almost 2 years ago. And
the runes have spoken.
No, truly. And he's been like such a blessing in my life. He's been so helpful. And we have exactly the type of relationship I would want to have with a manager, because when I have a question, I text him or I can call him. Like even through all of the bookings, like he and I are in communication every day. I talked to him this morning and I know like if something happens, he's just going to call me. Like when I booked something a few months ago, he called me and told me. He was like, I'm not letting you see this on email. I'm not texting you. I'm calling you to tell you over the phone.
That's dope.
And yeah, I just know that he really believes in me and cares about me also as like a human being. Like when, you know, there's been like recently family drama. I had to like get on a plane and go home for a little bit. And, you know, it's in the middle of auditions and whatnot. And I called him just to like tell him what's up. And he's been periodically checking in with me about, you know, how everything's going there. And most reps don't care about people. But I think that's also why having a manager versus an agent is very helpful. I think also at the beginning, because there is a much more personal relationship, and he has a very small client pool. So I'm able to get that attention from him, which as a developing actor that's really just figuring things out, I need someone that's going to almost hold my hand a little bit. Like I almost really fucked up when accepting a role a few months ago, because I accepted the role without talking to him. And there's all these things that, because I accepted the role before sending him the official offer, even just saying like I hadn't signed any contracts or anything, but just even verbally agreeing in the email that I would do the project, it cut him out of negotiations, and I wasn't necessarily able to get the absolute best deal I could have, because I didn't send it to him first for him to talk to them and be like, okay, well, what about this? What about this? Because he's asking questions that I'm not thinking about. And like in this project, they were really great, and he was able to come in after the fact and fix everything and like ask the questions that needed to be asked. And I definitely got a bit of a lecture on the phone when he's like, I understand you don't know this, and this is like a low stakes project, so it's fine, but this is why you have me, for me to advocate for you and get you the best deal possible. And like we're a team, like I need to know what's going on before you're agreeing to anything.
Let me ask you, what did he say about you coming on this podcast? Did you tell him? Or is he going to find out after?
Yeah, he's probably going to find out after.
Damn it, Eloise. I know. You should have told me, so I gave you some copy points to talk about. Yeah. Instead of talking about your runes. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, keep it professional.
Right. Wow, I need a Mitch in my life. God damn it.
He's the best.
Shit. What else I wanted to talk to you about? Oh, I wanted to ask you about thanks for sharing all about the acting and then the manager questions and all the other stuff that we've talked about and we touched on. But then there's also the other department that you work in, which is the modeling department, because I follow you on IG, and we'll wrap this up pretty soon. But I never got a chance to talk about this, because when I met you, I followed you. We communicated on DM, and I went through your profile, obviously. And I got to tell you, I mean, some of these pictures, they're very, like you look like different people in all of them. And
Yeah.
it's just insane. And,
I'm
and some
definitely
of them
chameleon that way.
Some of them are more risque than others.
Yeah.
Some of them, but nothing crazy. It's not nothing like a nasty.
Nothing on the verge of OnlyFans.
And nothing nude like you were on Zoom in the movie or in the nudist film Disrobed, right?
Yeah.
But as I go to your IG now, and I wanted to just look this up. Hold on here. I got to go to your... I love when I'm trying to go to somebody's IG. I can't do it. When I'm like recording, I'm like,
all of a sudden you just like can't pull anything up.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, let's give out can we give out your IG since we get people going to your get you some followers?
It's a public account, so
it is a public account. You want to give it to them?
Yeah, it's Elo Lola with an underscore, so that's ELOLOLA _.
Elola _.
And if you see the clown smoking, that's me. I am going to be changing that picture though soon because that's been my profile picture since 2017.
Yeah, since IG came out.
Basically, I mean it's a painting that a friend did of me based off of a photograph, and I mean I have the painting hung in my living room.
No,
so
it's a good picture.
I love it, but I'm going to be replacing it with the poster shot for You Know What You Are because we just did.
What's that?
The horror film.
Oh, is that what it's called? You know what you are. That's
yeah,
right, that's
and
right.
the poster shoot that we just did, I'm so excited about, and that when those photos are finished, that's going to be my new profile picture. So it'll be changing soon.
Well,
but as of right now, look for the clown.
The clown is the default. But then I look and this is what I told you when we first met and you came in to record some voiceover stuff. I was like, wow, this picture, which is, I don't know, it's from March 24th, 2023.
Yeah.
This almost looks like you could be, You Know What You Are, like vampire here, like femme fatale, kind of pin up.
Actually, there are photos on my Instagram from that production. But I'm essentially a blonde in that movie. That's how long ago we shot it.
Oh, and then this one too, where you're laying down with like the fangs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That I did. There's this studio in North Hollywood called Groovy Pads, and they have all these different sets. And the owner, he reached out to me and was like, hey, I like your vibe. Do you want to come shoot some stuff? And it was right around Halloween. I was like, yeah, let's go. So we did a couple of different kind of like Halloween inspired shoots. That was a lot of fun.
I got to tell you though, Eloise, I mean, you're very beautiful, very attractive woman, no doubt. And obviously you're very photogenic and obviously telegenic, which is why you're in film and TV and now, what's it called? Vertical soap operas, vertical soaps. And I mean, but as I scroll through here, I'm wondering, like you said, Groovy Pads was like the place where all these sets, but like there's so many different poses and I mean different wardrobe looks.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how did you get into this aspect of modeling? I mean, because it's quite a lot.
See, it's funny because in a lot of ways, I don't consider myself a model, but I do technically do a lot of modeling, but it's pretty much just because of friends. Like, I don't think...
So Mitch isn't setting this stuff up?
No.
This is all through friends,
This
just
is all through friends,
personal.
and like very, very little of it I've ever been paid for. Like, I've done a couple of little campaigns here and there, usually through just, again, mutual friends that recommend me for things, or people that have like found my Instagram and asked for a post or something. But I mean, going to art school, all of my friends are artists and photographers and stylists. And I mean, everything on my Instagram, even the stuff that looks very professional, is all just me having fun with my friends. Yeah. Like I have a few friends that are photographers and like creative directors that we work together consistently. And we just love building worlds together and seeing what we can create, and then pops up on Instagram. But I don't know. I don't really think of it beyond that. It's something I'm thinking about more in terms of just money. Cause I've never tried to have
like a modeling
agent or like actually gone after it. It's all been very,
I wonder what Mitch would have to say about that.
I mean, I think anything that gets my face out there, that's making me money, that's still aligned with, you know, what I want to do.
Because I'll tell you, here's what I think of when I see this one posted on May 6th, and it's you bent over backwards.
Oh,
like a suit, right?
That's one of my favorite shoots I've ever done. That's with my friend Ade. He's so talented, a photographer, creative just creative in general. Like he does everything. He works in music, he works in fashion, and he had this idea. We did that whole shoot in like less than an hour. He just brought the clothes. He found this dog literally that morning. That morning he was like, when I showed up at his apartment with the other model, he was like, so I was walking around this morning and I saw this guy walking his dog, and he's going to come and he's going to bring the dog for just a few minutes because it's a beautiful dog and I think he would look really cool in the shot. And oh my God, those pictures are insane. Yeah. But that was very much like we're just fucking around.
Yeah,
in his apartment. That was in his apartment. He just like moved the furniture in his bedroom, and then we did some stuff in the elevator.
But this whole look of yours reminds me of like something. If you ever go on WeTransfer.com and you're transferring a file, right? And then you hit transfer to whoever recipient you're sending it to. It'll bring up like an ad of whatever they're promoting. This picture reminds me of something you'd see on WeTransfer. Pops up and it's all, whoever took the pictures, it's an ad for that photographer. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, have you ever been approached to do something like that? Because that's obviously more professional. It's not as risque. It's like so universal. Obviously, WeTransfer is a global thing, or at least in this country, it's massive. Yeah. You know, it's like Dropbox.
I mean, certainly nothing at that scale. Like I've done kind of advertisement work for smaller companies, but nothing.
Yeah, I think we got to shop it to WeTransfer, or we got to shop it to some of these websites that just bring up those ads. Yeah, and I'm sure they're paying. Because every time it shows, you have to get paid for it. It's like a commercial.
I mean, hey, I'd love to get those royalty checks.
I want to look into that for you. I mean, there's this. It's just wild how vastly different you can make yourself look. Because as you're sitting in front of me right now, Eloise, with the Dr. Pepper hairdo color, and this is a fresh do you have. Yeah. You know, and then I look at the IG. It's like 2, 3, 4 different people I'm looking at. Yeah. And yet it's Eloise.
It's all me.
It's all you.
It's funny because I get that a lot from people saying like, I look at your Instagram and it looks like a bunch of different people. Yeah. Like I'm always surprised it's all you. And I think when I was younger, I was offended by that because I felt like people were calling me a catfish. And then I've realized as I've gotten older, especially considering what I do as an actor, that's actually my biggest strength. That depending on how you do my makeup, depending on how you do my hair and how you dress me, I can really become a completely different person. Yeah, you're very much easily. A chameleon.
Have you ever seen that show Orphan Black with Tatiana?
I haven't, but my parents were very obsessed with that show. So I know pretty much everything that happens because it was like they'd watch it and then we'd be at dinner and they'd be talking about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't watched the show, but I guess I know what happens now.
Well, as I look at the IG and then I think of the show Orphan Black, I just started watching the first season, which came out in 2013, who has Tatiana Maslany, who was She-Hulk, who was She-Hulk in the Disney Plus show.
She's so talented.
Attorney of Law.
Oh my God.
She looks a little different now than she looked on Orphan Black. I mean, obviously she's older,
been like 10 years,
but she cut her hair. She's very pretty. And I like her because she reminds me of somebody I work with, and she just has that look. I don't know. I like her look. But on Orphan Black, how she plays all those different clones of herself. Yeah. It's like you're actually watching different people interact and they're the same person. Yeah. Do you think you can pull off a role like that, like an Orphan Black?
So,
like, let me get into it.
My senior thesis actually was originally supposed to be a solo show, but I graduated in the pandemic. So what was supposed to be a stage solo show turned into a film. And I made a 45-minute long movie that I played all of the characters.
How many characters?
There were 3 main characters. It's a very intense story, half Shakespeare, half... It's almost like a documentary theater piece because I was using about probably 60% Shakespeare text, and then the other 40% was all dialogue taken from a documentary series called The Keepers. And I kind of merged the stories together in a way and created something where I played a high school, like Catholic schoolgirl, a nun, and a priest.
Damn.
So I was playing an old man, adult woman, and a teenage girl.
Did you do the old man voice?
Yeah. I had full
How does it
hair,
sound?
makeup.
Can you give us a bar?
Oh my God, no, it's because it's also so dark. I'm like, I can't even let myself go to that place anymore. It's not a cheery story.
Even Tatiana Maslany didn't play a man.
Yeah,
in
I've
that
actually played men quite a few times. That was one of my favorite things to do in high school. I played, there's a Bertolt Brecht play called The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui, which is about Hitler, essentially. No. It's like they kind of like Hitler and Al Capone. They like merged those stories together. And I played Arturo Ui, which was, it was a creative choice on the director's part. Like, how interesting to have, you know, this big scary man played by, I mean, I was like 16, like a small girl, but like be the scariest person on stage. And that was one of my absolute favorite things I've ever done. To be in like a big suit, and I was like fully in like all men's clothes and wearing shoes that were like a little too big for me. And I had like a sock dick, like all of that. I was like really in it, and I had the best time. So it was very similar, because also like the priest character is very much the villain in the story.
I mean, it's so funny though when women play male roles and they dress them up like men with like the mustache and or like, you know, the suit.
Oh yeah, I had a mustache, all the makeup, hair.
It's just because I could still see how pretty they are behind it. You know what I mean?
Still am like, my eyes are all like big and blue. I'm like, hi, but I'm like being so horrible and like,
and you're like,
disgusting.
How do you sound? How do you get into the mindset of the voice, like of a man? Like, what do you do? Do you channel your father? Do you channel Mitch? I mean, who do you channel like to become like a man?
I mean, some roles that you can channel like a specific person like that. I think this one, I wasn't so specific in terms of reference, as I think the key to playing a male character, at least for me, is a lot more in the physicality. And just based off of the physicality, my voice changes.
So you're like, how you doing?
I guess I don't try and like intentionally bring my voice down lower. I'm not trying to like make a man voice, because it sounds weird. But at the same time, like if you position your body in a way and you're holding yourself in a way and you're speaking from your chest, as opposed to like most women speak and are kind of like more throat head voice, whereas men, they come from the diaphragm. Exactly. So, and this is where like the acting training comes in, is knowing how to speak from your diaphragm, but it takes changing your entire physicality, and it kind of just forms from that. At least with this
sound like a man now. Can you give us a bar of just what a man sounds like to you? Just like you were like, let me get into it with the British accent. How would a man sound? Let me get into it. Oh, that's a British man. But how would you sound like? Yeah, well, so how do men sound like to you?
Men sound like to me absolute clowns.
Well, that's very honest and very. I resemble that remark. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my obvious dude voice is like, I feel like anytime I'm trying to talk about my friends, I'm like, they just sound stupid.
Eloise, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. We're kind of just like oofs. We're like big loafs. We're just big dummies.
I agree.
Eloise, will you be on my podcast?
That's exactly what you sound like. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right.
In my
when
mind.
you read my DM out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Like, in my head, it's like, sup. You want to come to my podcast?
And I did write sup, Elo.
Wait, did you?
I think so. Or I put hello, Elo or something. And I'm like, so I'm just wanted to say, if you want to, come on my podcast, it'd be really great. And you're like, yeah, for sure. Like, you immediately responded, which I have to thank you for, because most of the time I get left on scene with no response. And these are from people that I fucking work here with. Yeah. Unacceptable. But you came through. Yeah. You came through for the homie. And I really appreciate it.
Always.
We'll wrap this up right now. I want to close out with asking you, because you were born in 99, you're essentially as old as the show The Sopranos, which is like 25 years old, 26. Yeah. I mean, you are a very young woman. Not very young woman, not like you're 19, but you're a young woman who seems and carries herself like you've experienced a lot of life struggles. I mean, you moved from New York to LA. What part of New York are you from?
I'm from Colorado, but I lived in the East Village for 5 years.
Okay, so I think after 5 years, you kind of are technically a New Yorker.
If you ask any New Yorker, they say you got to live there for 10 before you can claim that title.
I remember it was 5 years for LA at one point. You had to be out here for 5 years, and then you're in Angelino.
Yeah, I think New Yorkers, because so many people there are like born and raised, will never leave, that there's a much more intense pride,
I bet,
over there than there is here. Because I think here is a lot more like transitory.
That's right. You're from Colorado. You lived in New York. Now you live in LA. You've been on both coasts for a long time. I mean, it takes a lot of bold bravery to make that hop skip across the country. To
be in the two craziest cities in the country, possibly the world.
But in regards to living in those on both coasts, and dating and relationships and then dating apps, what's your mindset, or where's your thoughts at on dating nowadays? Just with the ghosting, the drama that people have, like there's no attention span. You match with somebody on Bumble, you have two texts back and forth, and then it's over. Yeah. I mean, especially for women have an infinite amount of options to choose from, just from swiping. You're just swiping. Or if you're more into the same sex type of relationship, again, the options are endless, especially for women. How do you date in today's climate?
I think...
Or do you date at all?
I definitely date, and I think at this point, I would say dating is the correct term. I had a teacher in college who gave me this advice, and she was not my favorite teacher, but I've thought about this advice pretty much every day since. She's like, when you're in your 20s, especially if you're not at the point where you're dating to get married or to have kids, which I'm just nowhere near. She said you should really date people. Have your person that you go to movies with, have your person that you go to dinner with, have your person that you go on hiking adventures with, like really, I think there's a lot of pressure to find the whole package and not wanting to give people chances or continue with them if they can't satisfy every single one of your needs. So I'm very much in a land of, I have my people that I have my like fun outside activities with. I have my people that if we just want to like hang out on the couch and like smoke and shoot the shit, I can do that with. I have the people that I'm like, if I need to have a real conversation right now, I know who to call.
Hang out and do a podcast with. Hey, thank you.
But yeah, I think really like my relationships have been a lot healthier when I'm allowing people to kind of not provide for me, but they're able to provide for me what they're capable of, and I don't have to expect anything else. Because I think when you're trying, and when you want that whole package, pretty much everyone's going to fall short in some category. And that's where like the resentment and the anxiety and, jealousies and confusion. And that's where all those, you start getting into situationship territories. I'm like, I'm not doing situationships. I'm just dating. Like I'm not in a relationship, but I have people that I enjoy spending time with. And sometimes that's intimately and sometimes that's not intimately. Like I have many people that I actually regularly date that there's no intimacy involved, but we're still dating in a way. Like we're still going and doing all of the classic date things. Because I'm like, I want to be taken to a nice dinner and then go see a jazz show.
But
afterwards.
You're not exclusive.
Yeah, no. But then I have my people that I am more like comfortable and intimate with, and I'm able to be happy knowing that like they're providing for me what they can and nothing else. And I mean, I've been able to be seeing, like multiple people more long term, because I'm not so focused on like, let me get one person that's absolutely perfect, that can do absolutely everything for me. Because also everyone I'm dating for the most part's in their 20s, and no one can do that in their 20s. Like very, very few of us are really able to be that full package. Yeah. I mean, even for me, I'm like, I don't think I could do that for someone right now. I'm too busy. I'm too all over the place. I'm too focused on myself to be able to be selfless and patient and giving to someone in the way that I would want to be in a monogamous committed relationship.
So it's safe to say you're not in an exclusive monogamous relationship now, but you do have several folks that you're dating and spending time with. But nothing is set in rune stone. Yeah, no, nothing is permanent. Everything is like, it's very as long as we're happy and as long as we're on the same page, we'll continue. And then the moment that stops, you're able to just, it's easier to walk away. When Are you
you're
on the
like,
dating apps?
No. I mean, I have been. I've been on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge. I was on Raya for a while.
Yeah, Raya, you got to submit an application for it.
Yeah,
right?
you got to
get chosen.
Pay for it. But I mean, I definitely feel like I had more interesting interactions on that, but just because it's more, I mean, exclusive is technically the word because you have to be like approved,
right.
But you're seeing far less people.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of like, you only are allowed to look at, I think 15 people a day. You can only see that many profiles. So it really keeps you from doing the Hinge thing where you're just endlessly scrolling. It's like you have a set amount of people each day that you can see.
Yeah.
And if you like those, any of them, cool. And then if you don't, try again tomorrow. So it makes it a lot more intentional.
Interesting.
And that's what I appreciate. But I find that with dating apps, you're just, no matter how wonderful the person is, you're starting off on the wrong foot because you're starting off based off of very superficial information as opposed to, for me, I'm a very energy based person. I'm like, attractiveness type, that doesn't really exist to me. My type is a specific energy, you know, like I look for a specific feeling of how I'm around a person. And so everyone that I'm around, very, very different, does very different things, look very different, but they all give me the same feeling. And that's kind of how I choose, but you can't gauge that off of an app.
Let me gauge something really quick before I don't want to cut you off, but I have to pull a Joe Rogan. I have to pee so bad right now. My ratio of focus is narrowing very small.
You're
so
getting
let's just
tunnel
pause.
vision.
Yeah, let me just pause real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. Whew. I'm sorry to have cut you off. I literally, now I know why Rogan feels the way he feels because he'll stop mid podcast and then he comes back and he goes, so much better.
Like, now I can focus again.
I mean, you don't even understand. I was like, and I didn't want to cut you off because you're on a roll, but I was like, I have to stop her right here because I'm going to lose it. Anyway. All right. So we left off on the app thing. And what did you say? You'd said you don't have everybody that you see on a dating level. They're all different from each other. Mm-hmm. They're all on different characteristics, different walks of life and whatnot. Who do you prefer to date? I mean, do you date women too?
Yeah.
You do, right? Because I remember seeing on your Instagram, it's a they, she, right? Do you have that?
Yeah.
Okay, I was right. I was like, did my memory serve me right? And I immediately thought, and that's why I thought you had a girlfriend. Because I was like, because a couple of posts you had put up on your stories, I thought you were like, you said something about my boo. And I was like, that must be her girlfriend.
Oh, it's probably just my best friend. I'm very affectionate with my friends.
Oh, so. That's so sweet. But you're not dating anybody now, like exclusively at all, or you haven't been for some time. But you do have.
I mean, I did for most of this year. I actually was dating someone exclusively, and then between both of our schedules, we kind of just decided we're like very good friends, and we were very good friends before we started dating, and now we're still seeing each other, but we kind of agreed like the pressure of just the two of us kind of just became too much, and we're like, you know what, we can still enjoy each other, but like also live our own lives, and that's been good so far.
Wow, what an agreement. That person sounds very cool to come to an agreement like that. Now, let me ask, have you ever been in love, Eloise?
Absolutely.
You have?
Yes.
When was the last time you were in love?
Oh my gosh, I'm in love right now. Absolutely.
Not with yourself.
No, I mean, always, obviously. No, but I mean, I definitely am in love at the moment. I have someone that I like love very deeply, but circumstances, like we don't live in the same place.
Are they aware of your love for them?
Oh, yeah. We're very on the same page about everything.
And they feel the same way about you?
Yeah.
But you're not together. Does that hurt the heart? Is it difficult to feel that way towards somebody, for someone, and not be able to live it out and act upon it?
We have a very specific relationship that's also very much built on friendship, and we don't live in the same place. So we're very on the same page of like, we love each other very deeply, but the practicality of what being in an exclusive committed relationship at this point in both of our lives just doesn't make sense.
It's not gonna work.
And so like, why try and force a situation that is going to be difficult, whereas we exist how we are, where we're still super close, talk all the time, but we've been doing this for 8 years.
Wow.
So that's when I'm like, I'm definitely in love. But I mean, also, I think the reason we've been able to be this way for so long is because we give each other the freedom to live our lives. And we're both in our early 20s. And it's one of those things that, like, I think once we do, or if we do ever fully get into a relationship like that, that would kind of be it. So I think we're both very on the same page of also, like, experience life, have other relationships with other people, learn, grow, because at the end of the day, we just keep coming back to each other. I mean, that's my best friend. You know?
And yet there's no, like, because I find, like I told you, I put myself out there, got rejected, backfired in so many different ways. And it stings. You know what I mean? It stings.
Absolutely. I've also had very intense loves that I've lost, and it does hurt very, very badly. And sometimes that pain is like, it borders on illness. Like one time I was so down bad that I was literally getting heart palpitations. I was like waking up, like feeling like my heart was just not working. I ended up like going to the doctor and having to be on a heart monitor for a few days while they were trying to figure it out what was going on. And it was
because of that.
Yeah, it was stress induced is what they figured out. They're like, nothing is wrong with you, but you're so stressed that your body is like freaking out and malfunctioning.
I mean, that's why they say people that die of being heartbroken. I think it's true.
Very possible.
Especially
Absolutely.
when there's two people that have been together for so long, and then one of them dies, and then the other one dies just a few days or a few weeks later.
You see it happening with like parents and children a lot. Parents that lose their kids.
Grandparents for sure.
Yeah. I know many, many people that's happened to, that it's like if their child dies, it's
over.
Yeah, it's kind of over. Yeah, they're significant. Like my great aunt and uncle, they both had cancer at the same time. And I believe I think she died first. 2 days later, he was like, all right, I'm good.
Checking out. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not lonely, and because I feel like loneliness and being alone are two very different things.
Yeah, very different.
Right? I don't ever find myself even being lonely. There's so much work and shit for me to do. I'm never bored. I mean, that's not true. Let me take that back. I do get bored every now and again because some of the things I have to do to be an adult.
Yeah.
I don't want to do them.
Yeah.
I just want to sit there and do nothing. And choosing to do nothing is in itself doing something, because you're making the conscious choice to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm going to watch an entire episode of, right now I started rewatching Lost, which I love. And and like I sit there and I only get through like 30, 40 minutes of it. And then I'm like, I got to do something. I feel like I'm just wasting away the day.
Yeah.
But I like knowing that I have that option to do nothing.
Yes,
right?
It is very comforting. And it's a huge privilege too, to be able to like have the option in this moment to do nothing. Cause a lot of people don't have that option.
But in those moments, Eloise, I find myself going, man, I wish I kind of had a girlfriend right now.
Yeah. It's like your Sunday person.
Yeah. I wish I had somebody just to talk, like the person I was interested in prior, I talked to. Not all the time, but when we did talk, it was for hours. Yeah. And nowadays, in today's world, talking on the phone is like a rarity.
Yeah.
Especially unless you're on a podcast, nobody's talking for an hour. Nobody.
I'm a yapper. I have many hour-long phone calls. I do that fairly
This is great. Maybe I should call you and you'll be my therapist.
Just yap all day.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just need that sounding board to talk to.
Totally.
I think that's why I do this podcast. I do the podcast for the love of the craft of podcasting, right? And I like conversing with people like yourself, who I don't really know, and I like to get to know them. It's almost kind of like a little pod date, but we're not dating. It's just like a pod date to, I don't know, converse about shit. And in a way, that's my way of getting away from the quote unquote loneliness, if it does exist. I guess it kind of does for everybody, but for me, it's not detrimental. I don't go like, I need to find somebody, I'm so alone. It's just like, damn, I really wish I had somebody to chill with.
Yeah.
But then when I do occasionally find somebody to chill with, it eventually evolves into them becoming my manager. Like, I have to report to them. Where are you, babe?
Yeah.
Why are you still at work? Oh, you work too much. Everything. Now it's like they're trying to change me. That's been my luck with relationships, which is why I'm not in a relationship. Yeah. And, I think
there is definitely something to be said of, having a connection with someone, loving someone isn't always, or it's not enough for a whole relationship, because you do have to be on the same page about how you live your lives, and like, what are the things that are changeable? What are the things that aren't changeable? And I've had multiple friends in relationships, and I hear them fighting about things, and I'm like, well, that's just who they are. That's just kind of the name of the game. Like, you should have realized what you were signing up for. But like, if you really love this person, why would you be trying to change fundamental things about them?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I one of my best friends was in a relationship like that for a long time, where he would always just, her boyfriend, who was also a friend of mine, would just complain about all these things that she would do, but they were all things that were, you know, not anything malicious. It was just like, she can be a little spacey, and she's like a very like free floating fairy, and her ability to like float around and like not have super intense attachments, or like not feel like, she didn't have the same anxieties and paranoias that he did, and that drove him crazy. And it was like, it ended up being all the things he kind of hated about her, is how she was so carefree and like kind of happy and able to just like live her life through joy. And it drove him nuts. And I'm like, this is why you love this person. This is why I love this person. Right. This is why this person is so special. Yet for you to be comfortable in this relationship, you need her to change her entire personality. Like, that's, I mean, compromise. No one's perfect. Absolutely. But there's just like some things that are like, that's just not going to change. And for me, you know, I'm a very busy person, and my schedule is all over the place. And when I've dated people that are kind of on top of me, of like, well, why can't you like not go do this project? You have to do this audition right now. Like, are you sure you need to take this phone call? What about 5 minutes? Or, you know, I'm like, if you can't respect that I am like working hard and doing what I love, like, this is such a huge part of me.
You got to support it.
Yeah, I'm like, if this is such a huge part of me, if you can't support this huge part of me as it exists, then you're not supporting me. And then it's cut, you know?
Then you get those ultimatums too, which sucks. That's like, would you, so you'd rather be there than be with me? That's the worst, man. When motherfuckers give you ultimatums, and when women have given me ultimatums, I'm always like, I just cave. I cave like a house of cards. My weakness. All right, you know, but I think I think some people are just better suited to be alone. And I feel like I'm one of those people, like, to just do what I do. When it comes to this shit, this podcasting, production, sound design, voiceover stuff, I'm the bomb. Yeah. But when it comes to personal relationships that I can maintain without it going fucking south after just a couple of weeks and nothing happens, nothing, no arguments happen. It's like they just lose interest, or I'm just not attractive enough for them. I don't know what it is, but I just cannot
There's a million
hold on to
different reasons why things start, why things end, you know, but I think it's as difficult as it is, it's you just can't take it personally. Like, okay, I maybe really like this person, but if we're not a match, that's okay, because someone else eventually will be, you know, and you'll be able to find that person that you guys have the same goals and you're moving in the same direction and you're okay with each other's flaws and shortcomings, and you're still able to like look at those, accept those, help where help is needed, but like allowing the other person to exist. I think that's the most important thing.
Hopefully a woman will be able to look past the fact that I'm old, bald, and ugly.
Shut up.
Yeah, one day. Hopefully the runes will give me a message.
Yeah, exactly.
Eloise.
Ask your higher power.
I got to tell you, thank you. Let's wrap this up. We just went over 2 hours.
I know.
When
I looked at the clock, I was like, oh my gosh.
2 hours just flew by of deep conversation with Eloise Lola Gordon. Yeah. ELG.
Yep.
Go ahead. Any last words of wisdom, of last thoughts before? And I'd like to invite you to come back on the pod again in some point.
Yeah, definitely.
After you made a couple more feature films or feature short films for the
I would love to come, and especially when You Know What You Are comes out, I would love to talk more about that project.
You are.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why we picked that title, you know. There's a lot of ways to interpret it.
It reminds me of Let Me In, you know, that's another vampire thing, or You'll Never Be Alone, which is another those titles. I'm not okay with this. You ever seen that? Was a good one.
Yeah. We spent a long time on the title. The title, gosh, this movie has had many different titles, but that is the thing that I'm most excited about and would love to talk. And maybe we even get Rose in here.
Yeah.
We all chat about it. That'd be fun.
Let's do it. Like, shop it to Mitch. Make sure Mitch is okay with it. Manager Mitch.
Exactly.
Manager Mitch. He already has a handle. Perfect.
I know.
Yeah, right? Well, Eloise, thank you so much again for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Showing up and for everything, all the other voiceover stuff that you really helped me out with. And I'd like to do more of that with you.
Definitely.
And one more time with your IG, Instagram.
Yeah. You can find me at basically all of my social media platforms are Eloise Lola. So ELOLOLA_.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I call her Elo.
Yeah.
Elo to the hello. All right, Eloise. Well, until I see you again, I hope you stay cool in the summer heat.
You too.
And till next time.
Yeah, till next time.
There it is.
Oh, good for you. And how was it?
The Sketch-O-Matic Show.
Hey, too much information and shit, man.
Shut your mouth, essay!
Okay, bye.
I guess I can talk a bit in my very unspecific British accent.
Yeah. So good. It's so...
Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, 360.